Aloha, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. What a pleasure it is to be here at the Maui Arts and Cultural Center. My ohana is from Waihe'e, and it's always, I grew up on Oahu though, I'm a city girl, but I'm always reminded when I come here, the magic of this island. So I just want to mahalo everyone, all the Maui ohana here for just welcoming me and allowing me to be here and be in your space today. So thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate you so much. My name is Becky Soon. I'm with Solutions Pacific. Our team essentially is here as a kako'o. We're really just here to try to support the great work that you're all already doing in our communities and that you're doing within the visitor industry and trying to bridge gaps between our industry and our community. And we're just really here to try to provide support for the great work you're already doing. So mahalo nui for having us, wanting to jump in to this conversation, and thanking you all so much for being here today. We're gonna be here for the next 2 hours, just kind of talking story with this wonderful panel and this wonderful group of folks who are doing really wonderful community work as well. All of the things that we're doing today are going to be videoed. So you see Oiwi TV. Can we say just aloha from the Oiwi crew? This crew is really fabulous. We see them all the time behind the scenes in community, really trying to capture the great work that's happening. We're really excited and thankful that they're here with us today. They were here with us yesterday as well. Yesterday's focus, who was here yesterday, by the way? I know there were some folks. Okay, little over half of the group that was here yesterday as well. Yesterday, we really tried to dive in deep into talking story about, okay, what does it mean to create more relationships within and throughout the visitor industry? How do we create those relationships? How do we tackle some of the challenging issues around what it means to engage with the industry? Today, we're really going to dive deep on the marketing space. One of the things that we heard earlier this year, we went out and we did some needs assessment. So what does that mean? We did some focus groups, we did individual interviews, we did a survey, we talked story with over 900 local businesses here in Hawaii to try to understand, okay, where are the gaps? Where are the challenges? Where is it really of value to inject more time and resource? And one of the significant things that we heard a lot of great things, but one of the really meaningful things that we heard was we really need more support in connecting our local businesses to our visitors. And that could mean a lot of different things, but one of those things that we heard was that it also means strengthening the marketing and the communication channels. And so that's where we really want to dive deep in today. And I really want to thank our panel for being here. We're going to dive into a lot of different areas. I think that I believe that for those of you that know some of our panelists, we know that we're going to hear from a wide variety of perspectives and a wide variety of lenses about what that means to strengthen those relationships between our local businesses and the visitors that we are welcoming here to Maui and here to Hawaii. I want to introduce our sponsor, our funder, our partner. None of those words really do justice, though, to Kalani Ka'ana'ana, who has really been a visionary in the visitor sector and looking to help ensure that as an industry, but also as a community, this is an opportunity for us to look forward and look beyond to what this industry can be if it's driven by Hawaii's people. And so I just want to invite Kalani up here to talk a little bit about what this program is, what we're trying to do, all the things. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Ano'e kako, so good to be with you all. Thank you for making the time. We know you've got all kinds of things happening and going on in your daily lives to be here and to spend this much time here. I think if I could start, perhaps with an introduction of myself. I was born and raised in Kailua on Oahu. I'm the youngest, I'm the baby, I'm the poki'i in my family, and so that means you catch cracks in certain ways, but you're also the spoiled one. And so I've been grateful to call Kailua home. What it showed me, though, was over time is how our community changed as tourism's impacts grew. And so in growing up in Kailua, I got to see that shift and got to see what that looked and felt like and what it did to change the dynamic in our community, but also our natural resources. And I'm getting scolded to put the mic closer. Got it. And so I think for me, it really is the place that really got me inspired to get into tourism. Prior to this, I worked in healthcare, I worked in photovoltaic, I did retail for a while. I was all over the place. Culture being the thread throughout that time and throughout those different roles. And then I got a cold call from a headhunter at Bishop & Company. I was like, hey, I saw your LinkedIn profile. I think you'd be good for this role at the Hawaii Tourism Authority. I said, oh, is that with Mufi Hanneman? They're like, no, this is the state agency, not HLTA. And that just shows how little I knew about the industry itself. But I went out on a limb. I interviewed for the job. I got interviewed by a panel of, I want to say, 11 people, including the entire C-suite of the Hawaii Tourism Authority, 2 board members, Auntie Ku'uipo Kumukahi, Auntie Vicky Holt Takamine, and Auntie Paulette, I think, was the 3rd member from the community on that panel. But what it really did is it set me on a course over the last 8 years to really reimagine tourism and really think how we could do it differently. I think many of us understand and love travel ourselves personally and know what a privilege it is to be able to go to other places, learn new things, try new foods, have these wonderful, unique experiences. And so how did we think about that at home? And then how do we make sure that we do that in a way that doesn't take away from, detract, destroy, exploit what makes Hawaii Hawaii? And so that's really the journey we've been on. Now that sets the stage for this program, and really want to thank Becky and Kanoe and the team at Kilohana for the research that they did, which went into a technical needs assessment. Sorry, this is the government-y part of this. Went into a technical needs assessment that really informed us about what was needed or wanted from community partners. And so this foundational technical assistance that we're here at today is really a byproduct of that listening that we did in community. And so grateful to them for being able to be our ears and our eyes and our hearts out there in community, because there's only 19 of us at HTA and we can't be everywhere all the time. And so to be able to extend our reach is always important. And so we're grateful for that. But this session that we're at today is purely because it was asked for. And so I think that that's also a really important part of why we're doing this. Is it's one thing to talk about it. It's one thing to listen and go, oh, that's nice. But if we're not going to act on it, if we're not going to deliver on what was requested by community, then we're really falling short. And so this is really a fulfillment of that listening. I also want to call out especially Megan Degai, our destination manager here on Maui and representing Maui Nui, and then also Leanne from our Maui Visitors and Convention Bureau, who are also an extension of us on the HTA side and what we do both pre-arrival and in destination. So mahalo for being here today. Yep. Many of you guys have heard about the Destination Management Action Plans. We just wrapped up our initial 3-year phase of that. And again, that was born out of the pandemic and the pandemic pause and saying, how do we do this differently? And so we had prioritized actions and sub-actions from communities on island-specific plans. And again, that was a shift for us. And so what you're going to see is a more island-centric model for us and how we implement programs at HTA to make sure that we're returning some of that decision-making responsibility to specific islands and communities. Because again, we can't sit in the convention center in Oahu and know what's happening here. And so it's partnerships like that. And I'm thinking about Malama Maui Hikina and other programs that pilot these really important ways for us to engage this industry and to do it differently. How do we make sure we're educating visitors, telling them that they shouldn't be doing the dumb things, right? Like stop touching the monk seals, please. Stay away from the damn turtles. Wear shoes when you go hiking. Swim at lifeguarded beaches. All the things that we might take for granted is also a part of this work. And so that was a long way of saying that there's a lot of work to be done and we can't do it alone. And so we're grateful for extra hands today. And I think I'll turn it back over to you all because I'm also really excited to learn from these experts up here. They might not use that title themselves, but they are very much experts in the things that they do. And I'm really just grateful on behalf of Chair Hanneman and Daniel and myself and the rest of our team at the Hawaii Tourism Authority. We're really grateful for you giving your time and mana'o and expertise and talent and all the things that you sacrificed to be here today to share with us. So mahalo nui. Yep. Likewise.
We had a round of applause for Lenny. all the chords. Thank you so much, Kalani, for sort of setting us on the trajectory and the context of what we're doing here today. I want to just jump right in. So we have a wonderful panel of folks who have been doing work here on Maui and really sort of perhaps having some of those experiences that will help guide and provide lessons learned for those of us that are still working within this space or looking to connect within this space, or perhaps if not you yourself, those within your expanded networks as well. Really want to just kind of dive in and get a conversation going. So I want to go first to Daniel, the last gentleman on my right here. Daniel Logtenberg with Maui Marketing, really focused in on how to provide resources and support for activities and experiences. Who here does activities and experiences? I know there's a lot of folks. Okay, wonderful. Mahalo. And so for those that are doing activities and experiences, this gentleman and his team really help to connect organizations with the market and with visitors that are looking for those activities and experiences. But in addition to that, Daniel also holds the hat as the president of STA, the Sustainable Tourism Association of Hawaii, really, again, interested in wanting to make sure that the experiences, the activities that are happening here in Hawaii have regenerative opportunities. And so I think it's really, really on track and on brand for what we're trying to talk about today. And I'd love, if you don't mind, just kind of kicking us off and talk story a little bit about maybe what it is that you think that you do, what it is that if you have, we'll get into more as the session goes on, but maybe just kick us off with like a lesson or two around the organizations that you get to work with here on Maui and where you think there's some lessons there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Daniel Logtenberg. And as working with STA, so Sustainable Tourism Association of Hawaii, it has, what it shows basically in the organization's documents is a long history of us doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. And what the organization's trying to do is lay out a easy plan, but it's not easy, really. A checklist to just follow. And if you make those changes and you do the steps in there, you can have an economic success that drives your sustainability. And those two must work together. You can't have a sustainable company if it's not making money. Because then you're going to start to spend on things that don't make sense or not essentially sustainable or economically beneficial, which then leads to overspending on things you didn't really need to spend on. So the Sustainable Tourism Association and their certification program is what we're looking at, a pathway for companies to not only be sustainable and do the right thing for their communities, as long as it's, of course, legal. There's lots of parameters that we set up here that we do want to do as a, I started an ecotourism company and I want to do all these things. And it's like, well, you can, but you can't. And so some of these things we've had to turn down, and that, like tours up the Haiku Stairs on Oahu. Right? Yes, it's experience. It's an amazing. You'll have an incredible relevation, as you go up those things and see it. But it's definitely not what we want to be doing. And so, what we're trying to teach through the sustainability is that there's plenty of stuff that we can be doing that qualifies for that ecotourism or eco-friendly type feeling, without having to do so much. Remember, our guests are, and I don't like to refer to our visitors as tourists. That has a negative connotation, right? They're our guests. We invited them here, right? And when we look at them as our guests, we have to treat them differently. And when they know they're our guests, they'll act differently, right? It's psychologically impactful of some of the words that we use. It'll have these specific impacts. So through the Sustainable Tourism Association, through these checklists, this is what we're trying to do is provide these little steps along the way that companies can make that will impact their future and everybody else's. So that's one of the things right there with the sustainable tourism. I'm also owner of Maui Marketing. And Maui Marketing, to give you just a little brief background, I come from northern Canada. It's a mining town. And this mining company, basically any metal that you've probably come in contact, originated from my little town. It was just massive, massive mining operations. And they destroyed everything. 60 square miles, everything, acid rain, you name it. And that taught me this is not the industry that you want to have anywhere near where you want to live. It's the average life of the people, they died at 70 because the mines are terrible, And so when we look at our tourism here and our industry here, we are so lucky. We are so, so lucky. And this is what Maui Marketing wants to make sure that our businesses understand that we're very lucky to operate in this industry, and we have a lot of responsibilities. And that responsibility is making sure that you operate in the most effective way possible, most efficient way possible, and that leads to sustainability. We saw definitely after COVID, the differences of not having any visitors. We also saw the impact of what it was doing to our community, right? I've worked and lived all over Polynesia, and I've seen how tourism managed poorly has an impact on the communities, on these villages. And there's a lot we can learn here that we can spread to these other locations so they do it better as well. Remember, sustainability and environmentalism, that is not on our local scale, right? It has to go global, otherwise it's not going to make too much of a difference. And this is what we're focusing on through Maui Marketing, is going around and teaching some of these other tourism locations how to do it better. But we need to do it here at home as well as we can. So our push for the reef sunscreen, we learned how to lobby so that we got changes made that we wanted to see, right? We instigated, different of the bans here, right? And supporting those, the plastic bag and the styrofoam and all that, they were starting points, right, for us. And they're great starting points. But remember, most of those things also got killed on a greater level because we didn't take it to that next step, to the state and to the national level if we could. And so this is what we want to use Maui for, and this is what Maui Marketing really wants to focus on, is bringing businesses and showing businesses pathways for them to be sustainable so that we can then use their brand, their ideas on a world stage and really give them that. And so a lot of the companies that we work with, they're actually gaining a brand following in some of our visitor markets because they follow the mission of what the people are trying to come here and do. They don't want to come here and not recycle, right? They want to recycle, but there's no recycling easily for them. So they feel a little bit bad about that, right? But when they go into an attraction or activity that allows their mission to continue in that base level, they're very excited, right? And they're appreciative, and they tip more. And so we've shown, and through this, that sustainability and fulfilling some of these needs, I can charge more per seat. I can raise the value of your tours without you really having to do much more than a little bit of labor, which, is a good thing for our companies in a lot of cases, right? So these are some of the steps that we're doing. And the one company that I also have is a tour company and a travel company. And that's our biggest focus is how can we expand sustainably? How can we take our employees and give them living wages? And we know we have to pull that back all from sales, right? And this is where Maui Marketing also kind of focuses and guides is, we're giving 30 to 40% of our sales, our revenue two online travel agencies who are based in Silicon Valley, who are paying for, who are basically paying for shareholders, right, to do these things. And we have the expertise here to bring that back. And that's what we're actively doing right now. But we need more groups. We need more people in our hui here to make it work. And this is where strategic partnerships are everything in this world. So I think that's a few little bits there that I think is good for you guys.
Thank you, Daniel. Can I ask you, so one of the things that you said early on was an example of something that you perhaps wouldn't take folks on is Stairway to Heaven on Oahu. Can you talk a little bit about why and how do you communicate that to visitors?
Well, we'll use an example.
Oh, I totally want to go. What do you mean? The Instagram photos next level?
Yeah. Well, let's use an example here out in Hana at Red Sand Beach. And I think it was Kendall Jenner that showed up there and started doing stuff. And so we worked to try and so if you give it, I worked at the national park for a little bit through tour companies. And one of the things that they wanted us to do was basically, we're not allowed to say the word. Don't mention the place, right? If you start giving it more attention and all that, then people will want to go search it out. And so this was a thing when they starts to Red Sand Beach and all these other spots around Hana that start to get excited because they're beautiful and they have all these things. We can engage it and raise it up, and give it more things, or we can work to push it down. Right? And so this is some of the things that we actively started to do is a lot of people started reaching there. So you can go into Google and just change the map marker over to Hana Bay for Red Sand Beach if you want. And if you do that enough time, then the system will actually recognize that and it'll stay like that for about a week, right? And then it'll pop back to the thing. But it's enough to so we redirected a ton of people from that right after because that's what the biggest search was. Where's Red Sand Beach? How do I get there? And it's like, well, we just told people to go a different spot, right? They got a red sand. I mean, there is a little bit of red sand there, but and so these are some of the things that if we look at what happens normally is that a blogger will come in and it'll tell everybody everything. They've been here for a week and they'll share everything. And so what we're actively trying to do is not give them as much visibility, right? And that means stronger partnerships where the people who know better, right, we'll raise them up. We'll give them more credence. We know how to drive better informational people or better informational sites to the top of the search engines, to the top of the algorithms, and kind of bring some of those down, but that's a lot of work, right? We don't get paid for that. We just do it because, yeah, we can.
Last question for now. What's an example of a place that you do want to drive people to or an activity that you do want to drive folks to, and what does that look like?
In most of our marketing over the last 20 years maybe has been so Lahaina focused. So many people decide to come to Maui because of Lahaina. And we have other little towns. We have other ways, and what we want to be able to do is there's not enough parking or that in Paia or Makawao, but they're the type of towns that people want to visit now. The rental prices have gone skyrocketing through all these places, so the business owners, they need more volume. There's not enough parking to bring in the volume of traffic to actually allow them to thrive. So we need as an industry to help work ways. How can we get the visitors from the west side, drop them off in Makawao for a few hours, drop them off in Paia in a few hours, and then back out to the west side? Because that's the type of experiences they're looking for. We saw a definite shift after the fires to people going to Kauai and down to Kaua and then to Kailua Kona because of those activities and those things. And we know Kauai just wasn't built to handle that. So we just shifted our issues over there. So we have to bring those visitors back. We have the infrastructure, but we have to give them an outlet. And those two towns are those outlets right now.
Mahalo, Daniel. Really appreciate it. And to that comment about, supporting local businesses in other towns, for what it's worth, these gorgeous earrings from Depot Market in Wailuku, supporting folks who are uplifting information around autism and Down syndrome, especially. So, mahalo. Kaua, I really want to get you in on this conversation. Kaua Kanakaole, for those that don't know, wears many, many, many hats in our community. Kumuhula, with Halau Kekuhi for many years, leader within our community, also really sitting at the helm of Ala Kukui out in Hana, and helping to drive some of the conversation about what does tourism look like when it does feed and is driven by our community. I'd really love to get your kind of thoughts in on this conversation. How do we connect with the right folks? I think that your team has done really intentional work around finding the right visitors and finding folks that are aligned with your mission. Really love to hear more about what you think about what does marketing look like in this sort of regenerative future?
Velina mai ke aloha. O wau o Kaui Kanakaole, mai ka aina o Kaua kea, mai ka makani o ka ili aloha, I ka malu o ka pu'ukukui. My name is Kaui Kanakaole. I come from the land of the low-lying rain and the winds of the love-snatching wind of Kipahulu in the protection of Pu'ukauiki. Aloha. I was born in Hilo, but raised in Hana, and that is pretty much the story of my life, half. My mother is from Kipahulu and raised in Hana, and my father is from Keaukaha, Ka'u, Kohala, born and raised in Keaukaha. And so my life is that dichotomy of Hana and Hilo mostly. And when I was 5, we moved to Hana. We moved back to Hana to take care of my mother's grandmother. And that is where we live till today. And that is where I raised my children and in the same house. And so I spent my youth growing up in Hana. And it's such a small town, as most of you know. K through 12th grade, I knew every single person in my class intimately. And that's just a reflection of the kind of community we have. And I went away to school on the island of Hawaii, and that's where I got my education in the Western sense. I got my bachelor's of education. And then also my education in hula, in halau hula from my aunties, Pua and Nalani. And I'm not a kumuhula of halau o ke kuhi, but I am the kumuhula of halau o na kaula kuhi kuhi, which is my own halau that I have in Hana. But I do always go back to halau with auntie folks and do all kinds of different things with them. So that is basically where I come from as far as growing up, my surroundings, my experiences. Hana, small town. Hilo, small town too. So I taught public high school for 10 years at Hana, at my alma mater. And I got to acclimate myself to the community in that way. When you're gone for so long, I was away at school, and then coming back into the community, that gave me that chance to get to know my community much better from the perspective of teacher of all of their children in high school. And so that was my way of building more pilina, or better relationships as an adult with my community, because I had relationships as a child with my community, and then growing up and coming back And I think that was an important span in my life, because that gave me kind of the building blocks for what I stepped into after teaching, which was this nonprofit organization called Ala Kukui. Ala Kukui is now first and foremost a nonprofit community organization. Secondly, it is a retreat center. And it is literally 2 driveways down from my house. And so I live 3 driveways down from the school where I worked for 10 years. And then Ala Kukui is 2 driveways the other way from my house. So the diameter of my travel in my life for work is tiny. But I think it speaks to, like the focus, I think, that my life has given me in the work that I've done, kind of honing in on your surroundings, becoming very astute in understanding the people and the places around you to a very intimate level. And stepping into Ala Kukui in 2015, not too long ago, was a very different shift. It was a nonprofit and a retreat center that was run since 2005, 2006. 2 driveways down the road from me that I never really knew about, that I never went to. I never attended any events there. And so when I stepped into the leadership role at Ala Kukui, that was the biggest thing for me, was to shift that perspective of this nonprofit and this retreat space to be part of Hana community. And so we worked really hard to create programs and to attract mission-aligned, like-minded retreat goers, so that when we welcome our community to that space, they feel comfortable. And it took a while. It took a long while, actually. I would say just in 2023, I felt like we finally got there. We finally got to a place where community knew what Ala Kukui was. They knew it was run by fellow community members. They understood that programs were for them. They were comfortable coming up there. I teach hula twice a week, and so parents, grandparents, uncles, aunties drop off their kids, pick up their kids. So there's that kind of relationship with place. That's important. Having positive experiences is important in that place, to feel like you can enter into the space. And so talking about marketing and storytelling, that is the huge part of marketing. I think that, we don't necessarily use the term marketing, but it's the familiarity of the people who you want to frequent your space, that the familiarity that they need to have, that comfort level that they need to have in order to enter the space and feel welcomed and feel embraced. And that takes someone who has lived 2 driveways away from you her whole life. No, that just takes somebody who is very cognizant and knowledgeable about the space and the people that you are welcoming. And so that's been the work, I think. The work has been creating a space for our community first. Because your community in which your business or your nonprofit is housed in, if your community doesn't feel like they're a part of what you're doing, it is, especially in Hana, hard to survive. There is a way in which truth finds itself, and the place tells you. The place tells you how you should be stepping. And so people are a reflection of their place. And it's so important for the community to feel a part of you, a part of your organization, a part of your business, a neighbor, a family member. I think that's the biggest part of being a successful organization or business in a small community like Hana, a small community like Maui, a small community like Hawaii. We are very small, and you realize that the more visitors you embrace, the more events and workshops you put on, the more stories you tell and listen to, you realize that we are a small world. and so it's so important to make sure that you are creating space for the people that will have to occupy that, will have to malama that area, will have to generations from now be responsible for its health and wellness and well-being. And that energy is definitely felt by visitors who come in. An interesting thing, I think, that we had to realize as a nonprofit organization that does cultural types of workshops for community and also hold space for retreats, is we had to understand that we are serving visitors. Even though our visitors per se are Hawaii businesses, Hawaii foundations or organizations, they are still visitors to our home. They're still visitors to Hana, to East Maui. Yeah, they're not of that land, and so it was our, I think, acceptance of that idea that we are in the visitor industry, but our visitor is from this pai'aina, and so understanding that and the ways in which we interact with that visitor, we're a little bit more close in connection, in the way we love this place, in the way we care for this place. But I think it's important to know that just because you're serving Hawaii people, to understand that there's still a visitor to your home. And so it's important to embrace them in that way also.
And I'll say mahalo for, I've had the extreme honor of being one of those visitors.
That's right.
Holding space and being allowed to hold space in this incredible space that you steward. I'm curious, I think that in different ways, what we hear a lot is that organizations say, we think we want to connect with this type of visitor, but it's hard because there's a little bit of a sense of like, the visitors are who they are. They come, we get what we get. I think that some of what I'm hearing you say and some of what I've experienced from your team is this real intentionality around the perhaps you say it in terms of mission alignment, but in terms of the visitor's perspective that you're looking to connect with. Do you mind talking a little bit more about how do you find those visitors? What does it look like to have the conversation around, are we the right fit for what you're looking for? Because I'm sure there's times that you're like, nah, maybe not. And that's okay. Yeah.
There were a lot of times. That's why I said it was not until 2023 until we had, I would say, about 85% mission aligned types of retreat visitors. And it took that long, and we didn't market intentionally. We wanted to have our programs speak for themselves. So the programs that we put on was the way that we marketed, I would say. And so Hawaii people would come to some of our programs. They were open. They would be part of the community's learning. They would be a part of the community's understanding new concepts or sharing of personal practices. And that experience, kind of that shared experience between visitor and Hana resident, is what they took back with them. And so we relied a lot on word of mouth, which takes a while. And but that was fine because we really wanted people's reactions. We wanted their own personal story of their experience that they had with us for the weekend, either at a Hanaku event or a Noi Noi Nights event. We wanted that story to resonate with their person, whoever they were sharing it with. And usually they were sharing it with a family member or a friend or a coworker. And so that's how it spread. And it was slow going, but it was very intentional on people's part, on the visitors' part, and on our part. And that's what helped us to grow. Slowly but intentionally.
Mahalo. Colleen, I want to pull you in here. Colleen Chang, Director of Development with Hawaii News Now, a family of many different media organizations. But in addition to sort of having that lens, we talk a little bit about, having different forms of media, right? We have the media that we create as an organization. We have the media that we perhaps purchase or buy. We have media that we perhaps earn or we call earned, but sort of, I'm not always clear, to be honest, if that's also still purchased media, to be honest with you. There's different opportunities, though, that we have to connect with and reach channels. And I know, Colleen, that you also especially have sort of in your arsenal of experience a lot of community-based organizations that you yourself have worked with as well, including, of course, Honolulu Marathon, Merry Monarch Festival, Kamehameha School Scones Contest, and a number of others that really have been forefront for your work. I'd love to get your perspective for those businesses here, either joining us in person, joining us live online, or joining us virtually after today, that are really trying to understand more opportunities for how do those channels work? How do we connect to our potential markets? Really want to get your lens here. Thank you. Go and get them. We got like
Thank you
5
so
mics
much.
up here.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. I think I permanently
Perfect.
turned off the other mic.
No, you sound perfect. Mahalo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I am very grateful to be a part of this conversation this afternoon. Just like Becky said, I come from Oahu. I was born and raised on Oahu. I spent my entire professional career in marketing of 19 years, all here in Hawaii. I feel very, very grateful to do that. I think one of my passions is helping businesses of all sizes grow in however way they want to grow. I am very fortunate to represent Hawaii News Now, but I'm a part of a larger media organization called Gray Media Group. And across the country, they work in a lot of small communities across the continent. And so I'm very fortunate because we oftentimes get to learn a lot of best practices on how other markets are doing, whether it's a travel market or any type of sector. And I'm very fortunate to partner with a lot of local events. We are the home of the Merry Monarch Festival, Kamehameha School Song Contest. So I feel like we could have a 5-hour conversation on how to define marketing and how do you get involved with marketing? What is marketing? I think it's very, very gray. And it really depends on every single business and organization you're talking to. What I really wanted to share today was just, 4 trends that I'm seeing in marketing. And again, we could probably have a 5-hour conversation on what's earned, what's paid for, how do I measure success? But through the 19 years of just seeing how marketing has evolved, I have seen some pretty significant trends in the last several years come about. And I wanted to share that today, and can take any questions after the talk story session. But first and foremost, and I think we can all relate to this as people, is more people are doing more research prior to anything. Everyone, because of the internet, because of social media, we do so much more research. I think about myself. I have 2 young children. I'm married. I love to travel. Anytime I travel, I know exactly where I'm staying, what I'm eating, all my reservations, all the activities for my children. We're seeing more and more consumers are doing way more research. And so when I coach clients, I always say marketing is everything from the employees that you have at your organization, welcoming your guests. It's your website, which sometimes people make a decision on whether or not to come into your business before they even make it to your destination because they've seen you on a website. Social media now, which is a platform that you can post content, but people that you don't even know can post content. You can get so much feedback. Word of mouth is another way. There's just so many forms. So because of that and because of the research, it's so important to make sure all the different touch points in marketing, whether it's your employees, your storefront, a printed piece, a welcome video you have on your website, is telling your story, telling your why, telling, why come visit me? What makes my organization or nonprofit or mission unique? And I think in today's world, so many people form their opinions before they even walk into your storefront. So I've definitely seen that. And of course, I can relate to that in my everyday life as well. Video is definitely the best way to be able to tell your story. And I'm not talking that you need a full movie crew with cameras and lighting and makeup. I mean, with today's technology, you can get some wonderful video on a cell phone, on a nice camera. I definitely know video brings out all kinds of emotions, sound, sight, feeling. I believe we're so lucky that we call Hawaii home. People all over the world dream to come visit us. We get to market this place. I think video is the best way for us to show the beauty of what we have to offer and all the diversity that we have on the islands here. And I'm definitely seeing video. And video doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a video on television. It could be a video on social media. It can be a video on YouTube. It can be a video on Instagram. I feel like there's just so many platforms in today's day and age that video lives on. It could be your own website. And when it comes to marketing, and this is where we can have probably a several long-hour conversation, my team and I constantly are being coached on best practices for each of the mediums. The last training I was in said, if you're going to do a video on YouTube, make sure it's no longer than 6 seconds. I'm like, 6 seconds? How do you do a 6-second video on YouTube? And social media, no longer than 15 seconds. And by the way, Instagram's different than Facebook, which is different than an Instagram reel, which is different than X and Twitter and all of the other platforms. And so I think really definitely the trend is video is the best way to tell your story, but then how do you use those videos to be able to tell that story and how to use all those platforms properly so that people can know, your own particular story. When it comes to marketing, I always tell people customization is key. There's no one size that fits all. I oftentimes are at a lot of events, and because I work at Hawaii News Now, a lot of people come up to me and ask, how much does it cost to do a successful marketing campaign? What about a news interview versus something that's a little more curated or something that's on a longer form conversation? And I always share, marketing is very customizable. It really depends on every organization's mission and goal. Some people are really looking to get their mission statement out. Maybe it's not a mass marketing campaign. Maybe it's a very niche grassroots campaign, and there's a custom solution that can be formed for each strategy depending on what your goals are. And the last thing I always tell customers and clients and people who come up to me is like, always start with the end in mind. Because I know a lot of times there's like, well, I can't do a big magazine advertising, or I can't do a big television commercial, or what if I just want to do a small campaign on social media. I still always tell customers, always keep the end in mind. What are your goals? Everyone has different ways of measurement. We've helped clients anywhere from ones that really did not have a mission of growing their customer base, but really wanted to get their mission story out there, really wanted to talk about how they started. And we have partners that want to recruit. We have partners that are interested in maybe specifically speaking to an audience on the mainland or internationally or locally. And so I think with today's technology, today's platforms, it's really awesome that we have so many different tools to be able to market and tell our story.
Some of this sounds like pre-arrival. Some of this sounds like connecting with folks before they even arrive, maybe even finding the right folks to connect to before they arrive. You, the trends, I think that you've highlighted, super helpful, gives people ideas around, okay, what are the most effective tools? How do they even connect with those visitors? And then Daniel, I'd love to tag you in here as well in terms of how do we connect with pre-arrival visitors?
Well, as you're saying, audiences is everything. And all general marketing happens now based upon an audience. If you're looking at, let's say, digital marketing of any kind, they're going to ask, well, what is your customer list? What is your audience list in that? And getting that together is actually quite difficult to meet the requirements to actually be effective. So I encourage every business to start gathering as much data as possible, every little point that they can, because that is what their audience is. And that audience, then you take that to the mainland, and now you have a very focused campaign that you could do towards that. So, for instance, I know grandparents love to pay for entire vacations. So I have campaigns that are just focused on the grandparents who have a whole bunch of kids who are looking to travel. And because that's what we kind of focus on is these group things. And because grandma, she'll buy everything and be happy that everybody just has a smile. And so it's very, very easy to do those ones there.
I would definitely agree with that. I think in today's age, we have so much access to data. And some organizations know exactly who their customer base is. They tend to get more of the grandparents wanting to support a vacation, or they're more of a honeymooner type of focus or a family focus. And there is a lot of data that can be gathered on platforms like Instagram, like websites, that you can really target those specific audiences. And you can do that now because of technology, because of digital technology, anywhere in the world, really. You can do it on feeder markets in the West Coast. You can focus messaging just in Hawaii. And a lot of people now want to talk to customers in Japan. I mean, it's pretty cool. I think, 19 years when I started, I represented a print publication, and that was it. It was like a print magazine that was distributed across the continent, and it was in every single market. So you had to your message was everywhere. And now 19 years later, with all the different access points we have to data, it's really, really awesome on how you can curate an audience and then serve a message to them.
What would you say? Okay, so I'm a tour organization that is taking folks, in an area that perhaps my ohana is from. What does that even mean to gather the data that's going to help me connect with the right audience? Where do I start?
You want to take that one? Or you want me to take that one?
Well, I can start with there. So, for instance, the first step in anything is education, right? If people, before they come, they got to learn about stuff. Well, if you're the person pushing out that information, right? Now you're having people who are interested in that information now visiting. Well, if your information that you're putting out equals to who you're actually trying to attract, there you've started your visitor list, right? You don't have to make a sale. You don't have to do anything yet. All you're doing is just attracting them to your profile or to your website, which has analytical data in there that you can just start tracking at that point. You know, it's these groups that you can set up, like Facebook groups of a specific topic, right? And then people will start to utilize that because they're interested in that topic, and that's the topic related to what you are trying to sell, essentially. So.
Yeah, and then just to support that, platforms like Facebook, like Instagram, like YouTube have access where you can create a profile and say, I'm looking to speak to a female who's a mother, who has 2 kids, who may be interested in travel. And you can use some of that data to curate, you know, a typical audience or a customer profile that you would want to attract. And you can do it in both ways. There's definitely no one size fits all. That approach is another approach to be able to get in front. And I think with data now, you know, oftentimes people ask me, like, I started this campaign, I tried to do something and I didn't see the type of results that I was hoping for. But platforms like Instagram, like YouTube, you can get analytic data right away. And sometimes marketing needs to be tweaked. Sometimes it's like, you know, okay, maybe this audience, I need to shift a little focus. And I think that's the beauty of the day that we live in now, is that we have access to that. And it's pretty simple to start it and to look at it. And it's actually really cool to see metrics on it and see who's engaging in some of your messages, who's clicking on your website, you know, where are they coming from? You know, what are their habits? It's, again, I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah,
so I can talk about this for a very long time.
This is great. I mean, this is all in alignment, I think, with what resources are helpful for folks.
Yeah, and I would say if you ever have, like, you don't know where to start, come talk to someone like Dan or myself. It oftentimes just starts with a conversation. You know, what do you have a need? Do you have a challenge? What is that? And I think Dan could agree. There's no one size fits all. I think everyone is unique, but I would encourage, just have a conversation, ask a question. How do I start? What's step one? And that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. Not to put you on the spot, Kaua, but I'm curious. I know that you mentioned that you folks do a lot of word of mouth. Do you also market through any of these channels that we're talking about now?
Yeah, when you said video, yeah, we do a lot of video. And the videos are of our programs. And so the marketing is telling the story of the community that we create at the retreat center, the types of profiles of people that attend. You can just see it. You know, you watch the video and you understand what the vibe is of the place, and then you either resonate with that or you don't, or your interest is piqued and you want to find out more, and so you click on it on the website. But we did spend a lot of time in the first, I would say, 5 years looking at analytics of our website and understanding how all of that works, Facebook, website, Instagram. And that was like the first 5 years. So totally forgot about that. That was like so many years ago.
Continue to evolve.
Yeah, it's important.
You know, one of the things that we hear a lot also is just the importance of having sort of these rich stories that help to inform these experiences. And they're oftentimes are like the content for the video that gets promoted and finds the right customer that connects and resonates with that particular story. But you know, and one of the things that I think we often hear sort of in the macro picture is, you know, okay, we have to balance visitor and resident needs. You know, I push against that a little bit, only because from what I see, I think that oftentimes what visitors are looking for is in alignment with what our residents want. More authentic experiences that actually connect to our local communities. And so I want to pull you in, Kainoa, if I can, into this conversation. I think that oftentimes folks kind of are pushing for, we know we want to have a more authentic and more a richer conversation about what we're doing, but maybe don't always know where to start, don't always know what that means, how to be appropriate, how to do that in a way that's respectful of the space and the community in which we're existing within. Kainoa Hokajo, for those that don't know, is a principal at Mo'olelo Group. And I hope I'm not being incorrect here, but one of the things that I've seen described as is sort of burgeoning from a passion project, perhaps into this full service, amazing organization where you sort of responded to a kahea that you were seeing in a space, and now full service, do all the things, help people walk through, holds people's hand in how to navigate an important but perhaps challenging process. And so would love to kind of pull you in. And, you've often heard me say to you that like you have this really magical talent for connecting the threads in the spaces that you're in, officially creating sort of bridges between culture, commerce, and community. But honestly, like with the spaces I've seen you in, just honestly like breathing life into, okay, how do we make all these things make sense together? So no pressure, but kind of want to pull you in here to hear, how does what we're talking about here, whether it's in terms of connecting with the mission and the right visitor, or whether it's about helping make sure that our local businesses are realizing their product in a way that they're looking to, where do you think that your work helps to shed light?
Well, okay. Thank you. Aloha. Aloha mai kako. So I have, for today, been blessed with the opportunity to be quiet and silent and listen to all the different viewpoints shared today as well as yesterday. And it is one of the greatest joys in my life to be able to try and see the way things fit together. This marketing talk is I love it too, even though I'm the farthest thing from a marketing person. A lot of people I work with say, oh, you're a great salesman and a great marketing person, but I don't think so but I just only talk about things that I love. That's my secret. I don't work for people. I don't do things that I am not passionate about. And so naturally that comes through as being in marketing and sales, but it's not. I just don't like doing boring things because I get bored easy. The marketing conversation though in this room at this time is a really interesting one because we all know both sides of it. If we are speaking to a room of business owners, whether you are a new business owner relatively, like my friend Maggie, who's here, that started up, a boat tour company, or you've been in existence for 100 years and you're a landmark, multi-generational business, you have also been a customer every day of your life. And so you know what being on both sides of the table are. And I hate analytics, absolutely. I'm a word person, don't give me numbers and analytics, but I've dug into the Google analytics and our website analytics, and you start digging into things like even like Meetup when that was a really popular thing, and you could figure out groups of people by Facebook groups and by Meetup. And I want to just kind of introduce another way of looking at it, because historically, not another way, but there's a danger in looking at the analytics, because the danger is there's often a trend for the low-hanging fruit. Because if you see, oh, my people who are on my website or that interact have this viewpoint, and we know that outrage and outlying, extreme, topics get more press than others, and we see that in social media. It doesn't need to be election year to know that. But the middle of what the majority of people like. Sometimes it's the silent majority. And that goes that way for marketing or for trends in business as well as it does for politics and social commentary and everything else. And so what you see in the metrics is, oh, my customer, like a lot of times we'll see, my customer doesn't want too much education and history. Just give me the purple orchid lei and put the natives on the stage and have them dance, you know, and that might be commented and that comment gets liked and people are like, oh, it's funny, right? But we're not really getting into the meat of it. And so potentially there's danger for a company, a business to shift in a negative direction. Negative as in what the community actually wants, and not just what the community wants, what you as a business owner want, right, to shift in a more authentic, regenerative way, but also what the customer wants. But that customer isn't vocal in the way that other customers are. There's a term for that. It's called audience capture. And we see it happens with influencers and bloggers and podcasters and people who think their audience is telling them something. And so they drift off of their own integrity to try and become something that they're not and that only a small percentage of people want. And so, you know, numbers tell the truth, but they don't. Numbers can lie and metrics can lie. And so we really need to observe that. And it is, and I didn't mean this to be a plug for the work that HTA and Kilohana and Solution Specific are doing, but you need to get out in the community and you need to do more than just look at metrics, and you need to hold focus groups and you need to talk to a much wider range of people to understand how you can do things differently. And I think Hanaku is an amazing example of how to look at something that has been done for many, many years and centuries and millennia, like a retreat center, and figure out how do we bring it closer with the community. And if you don't know in the audience, if you haven't heard about Hanaku and the event, and it's not just an event, but what they do at Alukukui, it is really, really remarkable because it is this reciprocal two-way street exchange of information. And not a lot of times in a retreat center or any business do you have we're going to have the community show us what to do, not the other way around. A lot of times businesses are outward putting, right? You push that out, not be able to receive. What they're doing is like amazing. When you talk about video, you know, to see the way Lehia upon on Poli Poli Farms that was here yesterday, the way they are shaping their mo'olelo on their social media, and how it connects into both their specific land practices, but also if you've seen the videos where Lehia has her dad talking, or like, I think you were talking about crying, you know, it's just like really emotive and good. And you will have Lehia say, I'm not a marketer and I hate social media, right? And those videos are, and a lot of the videos that we see that really hit the mark defy the algorithm, you know. And yeah, we're looking for the 6 second, we used to call them vines, right? But, you know, the TikTok, you know, quick, and they cut the sound out in between the verbiage. But some of those things that are really hitting the mark now defy the media. It's the same way we see these you know, mini shows that are really 6 hour long movies cut up into, you know, 4 or 5 episodes. It's a different way of storytelling. And what I've seen in Hawaii, at least in my short time trying to be observant in this bigger trend of, you know, bending the moral arc of the visitor industry towards regenerative and sustainable things that we've talked about in cycles for how many, you know, cycles now. It takes people and businesses like Poli Poli, like Alukukui, and many, many others out there to say, you know what, let's just do it different. Let's just try tweak this a little bit, and then look at the metrics and see if it works and see if it sticks. And if it doesn't, then go back to doing something else that makes revenue. But there's an opportunity there to flip the script, and we can look to inspiration from, you know, other innovative industries at Silicon Valley, et cetera, that talk about that sort of innovation, that 10x shift, to use in our own application to advance the what we want to see within our culture and within the industry, but just done our style, you know? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like super tracking though with this idea that if the industry can be driven by what our community needs. So our community has vision, our community has experiences, our community has needs that like feed what our goals are. And then how then can we help shape the industry to be a partner in that? As opposed to this idea of there's this sort of externality of demand and that we're going to like shift to that externality of demand. In some ways, it's a more powerful sort of traditional marketing of creating demand through creating the supply. So if we build it, they will come type of model. Like we're going to create the sexy and people are going to come and they're going to, the right people who want to create, who want to iterate off of that model are going to be the ones that are going to come and engage with that model. You know, I'm curious, you know, I want to hear more from you, Kainoa. I want to also pull you into this as well, Daniel, just in terms of like, okay, so I'm an organization that is already connecting to visitors. Perhaps I'm a tour business. Perhaps I'm an activity. Perhaps I'm an experience. I'm already engaging with visitors. I want to be more regenerative. I want to connect more with the exact kind of model that you're talking about. Kind of what do I do? What do I do next? What does that look like?
Well, first you need a pathway for someone to then purchase the experience, right? What we saw in a lot of cases is there's nothing available on the calendar for us to book far enough ahead, right? We can't, people don't plan their vacations to spend a bunch of money and take an entire day to do something unless it's, they've been thinking about it for a while. They can see that it's available for me. I can trust on that. So when I book my tickets and I book my hotel, I know I can hit this and be able to complete that experience. And what we've experienced and seen a lot of is there's been a lot of owner-operator, a lot of cultural-based activities that come up, and they don't have a big enough calendar or enough profit for anybody to then be able to participate and create an echo chamber out of it. And that's where we've kind of seen across a lot of different areas. There's just tons of great ideas. But in the end, if at the end of the year we're in the negative, we're not going to continue it. And this is where we really, as a group, we got to come up with, because they're needed. These experiences that we're putting out are needed not just to create this next batch of what the tourism industry is going to provide, because if we look at the leaders in our tourism industry today, they came up with just crazy, weird little things. They were starting Hana tours in the back of little trucks. And then they would go, and over the decades, they would constantly improve, but they started someplace, right? And then they started with opening up their calendar and just saying, I'm available consistently. And at that point, then they can start to go. I've dealt with a lot of tour companies who were like, well, why isn't these agents selling, for me? And it's like, well, you work all odd days a week. You work in the morning, you work in the afternoon. You don't have a set schedule, because I don't want to think about your company. I just want to book the stuff with your company. And I don't want to think about, I can't do it on a Sunday, or I can't do it on a Tuesday, or I can't, this availability is just super important to allow us to then participate with you, and bring visitors in.
So, and I love that answer, because when you pose the question to me, that's not where I would go with it. Right? And that's partly the problem. I don't think that's where a lot of us would go with it. For me, I go, hey, I'm Hawaiian. I provide a great experience. People will sign up. But that's only a small part of the entire ecosystem of one, offering experience, but then actually having a viable business. And I think that's, I know in my own personal experience, being a cultural advisor and helping develop cultural programs at hotels, we struggle with this all the time, and we were talking about this. I can say 10 a.m., 5 days a week, Hawaiian history, 10 a.m. One person comes because that one person really likes history. I say, kukui nut bracelet making, or, lei making, where we make a kind of a generic lei, I'll get 30 people. And you know what I get to do? I get to talk about Hawaiian history for an hour while they're stringing lei, right? So, and then with the owner-operators, you have all of these incredible people here on Maui that have something to offer. They have land, they've got a cultural experience, they have a vehicle, but they don't understand the other side of it, right? They don't understand, the sales funnel. They don't understand how to open and operate a business in the state of Hawaii. They don't understand, any of these other parts. And that's sometimes the hardest thing to do. I think especially as a local person, being brought up in the age of the Hawaiian Renaissance, to be, and this might be for everyone as a human in some sense, I've always thought to be Hawaiian means I have to do everything Hawaiian. I got to be able to fish, farm, make kapa, dance hula, play ukulele. But like our ancestors were not like generalists. Our ancestors were specialists. The farmer didn't necessarily know how for fish. The guy never know how for weave lauhala. Like we were good at what we were good at. But now in the modern world, there's this view of the self-made man and you got to do everything yourself. And we struggle with that. And I see a lot of young Hawaiian and non-Hawaiian entrepreneurs struggling with trying to do everything. So they stay up, beat themselves up, take master class, as opposed to just like asking somebody for help. I don't know marketing. Will you help me with marketing? Right? I don't know sales. Will you help me with sales? And building an ecosystem of your own to help advance a larger agenda and not feel selfish about it. Because it's hard for us to feel the freedom to take up space in our world sometimes. Yeah.
What would you say to the person? I love all of that, by the way. First of all, mahalo for just being you. What would you say to the person who like maybe feels some kind of way about like, oh, I gotta package this as like a kukui nut workshop, when really what I want to do is to like share like this like ancestral wisdom that I have taken generations to cultivate. But you want to package it in a way that people want to consume. What would you say to that person to create the bridge?
Well, so this is, okay, so I love this question because this is the fun part, right? One, I think it's easier to create it with a community as opposed to trying to develop something within a silo of your own brain and then put it out there, have it be rejected, and then reinforce your belief that like you're a failure. You know what I mean? And we do that a lot. You're like, oh, this is a great idea. And then like, oh, nobody bought it, so it's a terrible idea. It's like, no, you just didn't talk with your friend about it. Hey, Kaui, what do you think about this? And workshop it. And really like, sometimes we try to go it alone so much, but the best things always come through community, right? So finding the ways to tweak things so that at face value, you are operating in good faith, right? You are marketing and advertising in good faith. You're not telling somebody you're going to come to this when you're actually getting them to that. We see this in the luau industry a lot, right? As we're shifting away. What's a authentic Hawaiian luau as opposed to a Polynesian luau? Is there, what everyone wants to know, is there fire dancing? That's it, right? That's the number one question a lot of the times. And so you see the industry shifting to how do we communicate the vision of a luau or a aha'aina or a pa'ina or a whatever you want to call it, so that people don't write a bad Yelp review because there wasn't a fire dancer at the end, right? And it's hard to do that if you're just one person in a dark room spinning your wheels on how to communicate that effectively.
One of the things that I'm hearing is that there's some of it is just like asking your own friend, like, give me some honest feedback. Give the folks that are in the room, perhaps today. I also heard Colleen give an open invitation for come talk story with me, come talk story with Daniel. Colleen, can I ask you, how do people, I suspect that there are some folks at times that feel intimidated about approaching folks that are in certain spaces. And that's probably to all of you, to be honest. But maybe Colleen, if you can start us off in the conversation, how do people just start to talk to you about, okay, what do the people that I'm trying to connect with actually receive in terms of information?
That's a great question. And I still strongly, it all starts with a conversation. I think back to a lot of the most successful marketing projects I've been a part of. A lot of it just started with a conversation. Someone called with an idea or a challenge that they had. And I love that Kainoa brought up, it's a collaborative effort. I feel like multiple vantage points should be taken when coming up with a marketing strategy, because everyone has a different end goal in mind. And again, some it's revenue, some it's not. Some it's being able to be very mission driven. Sometimes it's just being very overt about the products that you're going to offer, so that when your customer comes, they know exactly what to expect. I think I love these type of conversations because there's no one size, there's no like you do this and then this is going to happen with marketing. I think it's definitely, there's so many different solutions that you can be presented with. And I think that just the collective effort and creativity and different vantage points, like all work together to make it happen. And I will tell you, if you think about some of the best marketers here in Hawaii, I think a lot of them will tell you it's a collaborative effort. It's not a person alone coming up with a plan. It's oftentimes a group of individuals that have very different perspectives that come up with successful marketing strategies.
One of the things that we hear a lot is that there are these experiences for mindful travelers, that folks who do come to Hawaii that actually do want to have these authentic experiences, whether it's around culture, around history, around connecting to Aina, that these experiences exist, but folks don't always know how to find them. Do you have thoughts yourself, Colleen, others want to kind of open this up for how do those who are providing them get on the radar of visitors? And then how are visitors finding these experiences? How do we increase those channels to create more opportunities?
Well, I'm going to put a plug in for Sustainable Tourism of Hawaii and Curator. I mean, there is an opportunity to aggregate yourself as an individual business with other channels, right? Whether they're printed publications like Hawaii Mag or Maui and Hawai, or I don't even know what you'd call them, groups of like-minded businesses, whether they're certifications or, larger associations that are also doing your marketing for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, HTA provides a base level of marketing of the whole state. This is where, if you're looking at a funnel, right? So they're handling that top of the funnel, just getting people interested in Hawaii. Right now, people are interested. Now they're like, well, I heard about this culture thing. What's out there for that? And so that's that next step of what we have to do as a group, right? To give you an example, Haleakala Sunrise was just completely overrun years ago, right? And there was 17 operators who was promoting to go up to Sunrise for the sunrise and the biking and so on. And the national park saw it and says, well, they're destroying the land. They're doing all these things. We got to cut this down. And so they cut that down to 4 companies. Well, what happened at that point is that echo chamber of how great Sunrise was dropped considerably, right? There was less people talking about it. There were less people interested in it because there was just less of these 17 different companies that were out there being hooray about that. And so what we got to look at, is there's a certain critical level basically to make marketing campaigns really work. And you can go and you can do that a little bit, but if you're not taking it all the way or you're not bringing in these strategic partners to help you, you're not going to cut through because, there's 18 different activity categories in this state. If they don't go for Sunrise, they'll go and pick something else. And this is where you have to kind of look at, well, what within that space, if you're starting a new boat company, let's say, All the boats have been moved from Lahaina to Ma'alaia, right? We are overrun with boats right now. And all of these boat companies are now, they're not filling up their boats, right? You know, we have, of course, a depression a little bit here, but what do we do about that? Well, there's a different timing, there's a different experience within that to create another value. And this is where bringing in more cultural aspects to something that might not be connected in that way can help separate you, bring that value, and then bring that new experience. Because remember, it's not the initial experience that will actually drive traffic, right? Or drive the actual, they'll drive traffic, they won't drive the actual revenue, right? I have lots of loss leaders. Basically, I'm doing them, I'm saying, hey, these are great, you should come do them. When it comes down to it, people don't really buy them, they buy the standard stuff. And that's kind of what I really want them to buy anyways, because that's more profit driven in that regard. So these are some of the little things that we have to kind of to look at when we're developing these markets or knowing something didn't work, right? It's not necessarily that it didn't work, it didn't work why you expected. And we have to be very adaptable to that in our industry, especially over the last 5 years where we've had a lot of challenges with doing stuff.
You know, thank you, Daniel. I want to shift a little because I want to just keep recentering this idea that like our communities, the people who live here on Maui, the people that live here in Hawaii have the answers and have the solutions and can drive what it is that we want this industry to look like to serve our local needs. And I want to open it up a little and not to put you on the spot, Kaui, but maybe I can kind of start with you and go this way. I'll give you a second. I'll lead it up, tee it up. You know, what does a regenerative visitor future look like? And where does the industry, where do visitors fit within that vision? I'm just going to put them out there. We're just going to throw them out in the universe.
Great question. I think, you know, regenerative tourism for me is the basis of aloha, and so it feels natural, not foreign. It feels like something that we grew up valuing and learning and knowing and understanding how to operate within that realm of regeneration. The idea of what you put out into the world is what comes back. The idea of you caring for your place and taking care of your community, that comes back to you naturally, just because of the way that regeneration works and aloha works. And I think it's about, in the future, it's about kind of just leaning into that more, standing firmly within this land that we stand upon, that we walk upon, whether we hold the blood of this place or whether we have come here, 50, 60 years and have raised our kids here. This is the value system. This is what breathes life into this aina and these forests and these mountains and the ocean. And so it's for us as residents, as kama'aina and malihini of this place, it's really rooting down into that understanding of how we tread on this land and how we treat our interactions with our community and with our partners and with our visitors is what we want to get back. And so regenerative tourism is just that idea, that we settle into that idea and agree that that's how we move forward. What do you think about that, Kaino?
I just loved everything you said. And I guess when I heard, and I'm going to bring up something Kalani mentioned in the beginning, as this larger statewide or, HTA, the whole movement towards from sustainable tourism to regenerative tourism and the DMAPs and all of that. Kalani mentioned something in the beginning talking about how the plan and the everything is going to become more island centric. And when I hear island centric, and you think about the nested, geography of things. Oh, okay, in Hawaii we get islands and moku and ahupua'a, and then even driveways. What is good in this driveway different than that driveway, right? In different neighborhoods. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about home rule, right? And all around the world, we can think about home rule, whatever, states' rights versus federal rights, Europe, over here, over there. This is not a unique to Hawaii thing. What is unique to Hawaii, and I can talk forever about how awesome and special and unique I think we are, is that when we talk about home rule and we ask in relation to a visitor industry, we're asking a community, what is best for you, right? A community is, if they're posing the question to themselves, saying, what is best for us? What is best for Hana? What is best for Wailuku? What is best for Maui? Anywhere else, the question might stop there. But in Hawaii, because of aloha, because of our foundational values of reciprocity and ho'okipa, as exemplified in the Kanawai Mamalahoi and many, many other examples historically, asking the question, what is best for us, includes visitors, includes how we host people coming in. Whether that was by nature of that's just who we are, to extend aloha when people come in, or whether that's because we knew that it was either a visiting chief and we would get cracks if we messed up, or visiting family and we wanted to be hospitable, or because of just that deep-seated thing that, at some point I will be the traveler. And so the golden rule comes into effect, and I do unto me as I would do unto you, right? But that is something that is deep-seated within us. So we cannot talk about home rule and island-centric or community-centric without the inclusion of and hosting of visitors. And I think it's really important to note, because we are not 100% Hawaiian anymore, but we have outside foreign mentalities. So when I hear somebody say no visitors, I think to myself, that's not Hawaiian either, because I like come visit. Or because what about when auntie comes over from the other island? Those are visitors too. And we've talked about it's not just visitors from across, but we need to hold the line there, as well as how we hold the line with aloha and how that is central to a regenerative economy.
I think that's adding to that. That's embedded in our language, also our Hawaiian language. When we say kako, it includes you. That's not just us. So that's just a part of the way the Hawaiian thinking is inclusive of everyone.
I completely agree with both of you. I think when I think of regenerative tourism, I always think both people who live here, who call Hawaii their home, and our visitors, you leave Hawaii a better place than when you came to it. And I think it's rooted in a lot of us that live here, work here. I mean, we live in the most beautiful place in the world, and we have the great honor of inviting people from all around the world to share our beautiful place. And I think of that as always leave the place that you came better than when you first came. Always try to take care of the beauty that we have around it. And it's a collective responsibility. It's a collective responsibility with us, with our visitors, and amongst the business community, whether you have a nonprofit, whether you are a for-profit, whether you're an activity, whether you're whatever sector you're in, it's a collective responsibility for us to really be rowing in that direction. I love the idea of having more community-focused ideas, because I do believe every island is different. I mean, I love coming here to Maui. It's so different than Oahu, and going over to Kauai is so different, and then going over to Hawaii Island. I feel like every community is unique, and we all have our own special reasons of why we're so unique. And I always believe it's that collective shared responsibility in order for us to really achieve that regenerative tourism model that we're all wanting to get to.
My views, and I love what you're all saying in that regard. My views on regenerative tourism is a bit more practical in that we can't have regenerative tourism if there's no living wage in the tourism industry. And so how do we create that? How do we bring back the biggest part of the money we're giving away? Because the money that normally most of our companies are actually keeping is our operational, right? And we tend to give away most of our profit, in a way, to companies like Viator, Airbnb, all of these ones who are doing this sort of marketing and that, and they take a massive percentage. And if we can bring that back home here, right, that's money that then we can pay for our local experts to do these things, pay our people better, to within our companies, because we have more of that available cash. And so this is where, when we look at regenerative tourism, it's I was in Samoa a few weeks ago, and they charge enough for their services to live for the day, right? And then that creates a mentality that you're only choosing for things that day. And so there's no planning, there's no saving for the future options. And so this is what we're seeing a lot in our cultural practitioners, is that they're not charging enough. They need to be out there and have a living, like a company that can be turned to, a consulting firm or something where they live well, right? Because they deserve to live well. And we in the tourism industry, we think, oh, this is just service. We've got to keep wages as low as possible. And it's like that's not our solution. That's not how regenerative tourism is going to excel. If we're going to make it work, it's got to work for us personally, and that comes down to the communities itself. Communities don't collect enough money, right? They're not going to do well. They're not going to show this beautiful culture and this beautiful area that they live in, because they can't maintain it. So how do we work that in? And this is something that we really have to focus more on, is getting what you're worth.
Yeah, I want to pull in Kainoa. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say,
you.
well, part of what you're mentioning, right, we're having the ownership conversation, right? The ownership of those sales funnels that take away, 30%, or who knows what it is. The ownership of our land, the ownership of the hotels, right? I mean, Oahu, do you look at the difference between Oahu, Waikiki, where a bunch of that land ownership is owned by ali'i trusts.
Some, yeah.
As some, not enough, but way more so than, say, Maui, right? Where there's not a single, I don't think, hotel property that's owned by a local investment firm, save maybe if we count now Black Sand, right? Which is now becoming one of the first locally owned, Hawaii-owned private equity firms. Right, but when we talk about ownership and coming from the hotels, I always think about who owns the land under the hotel and who's managing the hotel itself. And I don't really think about Airbnb, Viator, Fair Harbor, and these behemoths that are also, that when we talk about revenue leaving the islands, that's a really interesting point, which I didn't think about. So thank you for bring that in, but the ownership across all segments.
Well, one of the things that we talked about too a couple of days ago, the three of us, was around not only was around, okay, how do you also charge for things that maybe people sometimes feel uncomfortable charging for, right? So we've talked, for example, about volunteerism opportunities. So if visitors want to come here to Hawaii and want to spend time in our lo'i or spend time at our beaches and spend time giving back to our aina, there are some folks who feel some kind of way about charging for that. But we know that it takes time, it takes effort, it takes resource in order to curate that volunteer opportunity for that person. And so how do we make sure that organizations are provided the support that they need to continue to do that hana? How do we reconcile that with this maybe discomfort at times about talking about ownership? I'm glad that you kind of put the flag on it. It's like, this is kind of an ownership conversation. What does that mean?
Well, and the problem with a lot of the volunteerism opportunities, and you brought up the point about the calendar, right? It just, they're not doing 7 days a week from 10 to 2 or whatever it may be. Luckily, we now have, and I'm not the one to talk about the new partnership with Kanu Hawaii, but we're going to become the first, destination that has metrics on volunteerism. And now everyone can go to, I don't know if it's on the HTA or HVCB website yet. I'm looking at you guys. Thank you.
GoHawaii.com.
Go Hawaii,
mahalo.
right.
Fabulous potential. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
because it's incredible. Now we can aggregate all the volunteerism opportunities and then actually have a better calendar so you can search by date as opposed to going to Kipuka Oluwalu, go check out Kipuka Oluwalu, going to He'eia, going to over here, going to over there individually. There's one portal where people could access, everything. But how long has it been that we've been doing volunteerism, and only a couple months ago, now there's this new capability. So there's so much more innovation that needs to happen in this regard.
Well, and that's innovation that can happen from our students, right? I mean, we're teaching them all of these amazing things at our universities, but we have actually no work for them. It doesn't make sense. I've seen this over and over. We tend to go outside of Hawaii to get our experts, and it's like we don't need that. We have such a thriving community of creators, of software developers here, all these things that we're just not putting to work.
The EK is in the room. We're here.
So this is essentially we want, as part of regenerative tourism, is that that knowledge has to be here homegrown, right? And then export that knowledge, because we're not actually trying to bring a lot more tourism. We have a carrying load. We keep exceeding it, especially here on Maui. And so now it's, we're in the tourism industry. What parts of the tourism industry do we really need to be in? And that's why we start to export this knowledge to some of these other places. Right? The knowledge is coming here. We control, so much experience because we have so many people coming here, and we can teach others a little bit better, and that creates something, we got to teach. That means we got to do better, and that's where it kind of can come in. So.
One of the critical components, as we keep talking about regenerative tourism and regenerative economies, of course, is investing in our entire supply chain, right, of our local products. And we asked this question last week at one of our panels, and we're really excited for some of the answers. So I want to try this out as a closing for our team as well. This has been such a rich dialogue, and I just want to mahalo you folks all again for spending the time and just being willing to share your experiences, your lessons learned. Hopefully this is the beginning of ongoing conversations as well, as we continue to iterate forward. I'd like to ask the question of if there is a gap that you see in the industry right now, and perhaps connected to that or separate from that, if there's a product, is there like a widget? Is there a thing that you wish there was available to our local market, that's locally produced, locally owned, locally curated? And I kind of want to pick up on something that you said, Dan, earlier around the importance of living wages. I'm really glad that you flagged that. I think sometimes that we put these sort of upstream issues, sometimes outside of our lens, but they connect, right? And one of the things that we heard also along the same lines was housing, that housing is this integral component to our industry, that folks who can't live here and can't have a quality of life here are not able to contribute to and engage in this industry. And so to me, that's my gap, is how do we create more housing opportunities that are locally owned for our community. But if there was like a widget, if there was a thing that could be sort of the locally owned, the locally created product, and I'm going to borrow one from something that somebody said last week, and that was creating, there's so much consumption of shampoos, conditioners, lotions, all of these products that could come from our aina, could come from our communities. Years ago, we worked with a group on Molokai, Iran, trying to create perhaps more sunflower just to help regenerate some of the lands there, but get that sunflower into natural and biodiesel production and whatnot. What opportunities are there for that kind of cool product? And I would love to have a local product that I could put on my hair every day, wash on my face every day, just on like a selfish level. And I'm sort of curious if other folks see gaps, but also see opportunities for, okay, this is a thing that we could invest, that our community could kind of wrap their hands around and have that be a local generated product. Dan, I'm gonna start with you.
Local generated. I got a bunch of dogs, and I would love deer kibble, because we have so much deer, and I don't really like eating them, but I'm pretty sure the dogs and the cats would, and that's a whole just industry which would solve a problem, create a manufacturing process for us to build some of this, and then of course once we take care of the deer, we can move on to other things. But yeah, deer kibble.
I love this idea of what is a local need and how does that connect to, mahalo. Colleen, what about you?
So mine is not like a product per se, but I believe the gap that we have is what we're trying to do right now to solve that gap, is having these conversations, bringing people together from different sectors, for-profit, non-profit, sustainability. I think we need to have more of these conversations and bring in more people. I believe this is an opportunity for us. So it's not a thing that we can sell, but I would like to have more of these opportunities to be able to interact with other change agents here. I feel like so many times we get so stuck in what we're doing every day that we forget about what others are doing and how we all kind of help each other in some way.
Yeah, totally. No, it's interesting in each of our things that we're all related but separated too far, right? And so in a lot of the cases, the ideas come from just these weird little conversations, these little antidotes on the side that then spark something really amazing. And we see it in all like the authors. Have you seen of all these successful authors? Half their things were mistakes. And we shouldn't be scared to do that, make mistakes.
We're going down the line? Okay. I love that you said that, because I totally agree, and I think that's a big part of one comment I was going to make. First of all, there's gaps everywhere. There is not a single sector, where we do not have gaps, whether that is less. Okay. There's not a single area, whether it's an actual product or software or intellectual thought, where we do not have a gap. And I think we've seen huge progress in kind of the think tank, incubator, accelerator programs throughout Hawaii, thanks to a lot of these incredible, Purple Maya and Mana Up and all of these different, incubator and accelerator programs, which just get people talking to move things forward. The other conversation here about gaps is one of the lifestyle and environment and society that we've built. It's way different. Now, my parents, we have a family bed and breakfast. We have 3 rooms, on our property or family farm in EL. We can easily source local skincare, shampoo, conditioner, soap. Easy. An 800 key room hotel, 4,000 rooms over here, 15,000 rooms across the island or whatever. We're talking about different economies of scale. If I want to do native Hawaiian, furniture, bedside table, that's easy. I only have 3 rooms. But to do that for 800 rooms or 8,000 rooms, it's a completely different conversation.
Every week, every month.
Well, right. Then you get into, even we talked up yesterday about lei, right? So to me, there's opportunities and gaps everywhere. One, because we do live in a free market capitalist society. And so more people in a particular sector will encourage innovation, and not a dropping of the price, because we don't want that, right? But we'll encourage people to think differently about it, and we'll encourage innovation. And if anything, we local people, we are innovative, and we'll figure out new ways to make it work. So I think there's opportunity everywhere, but there's a big difference between the mass market of getting into every room in Wailea or Waikiki compared to like what's in your living room, what's in your living room, what kind of soap you use, like how many of us are using that kind of soap, because it's out there, right? There's not a lot of them, but they're out there. And the more we support those businesses, the more other potential entrepreneurs, whether they're making widgets or soap or whatever, will say, hey, there's space for me. And we've seen that in fashion design in the last 10 years. Look at, from just Tommy Bahama and Ren Spooner to Kamohoali'i and Manaola and how many, new fashion designers, because it's like representation. They see that there's space for them, and so they take a risk. And we can see that in every sector, I think.
I think I'm gonna cheat, because everything you guys said, I was like, yeah, me too. Yes. So what you were saying, Kainoa, about like we have a small little retreat center, 4 bedrooms and 4 cabin rooms, and we, like today, I'm supposed to meet Vailani because we buy her kalo creamer. She has a small little business up country called Luau Creamer, and that's the creamer we use in our retreat center. And even Lehia, we use her Poli Farms tea in the rooms, and the soaps, the same thing. But I can see the gap, and I wouldn't want them to have to serve the 8,000, and I really don't think they want to be doing that scale either. So the gap is that shift in mentality, I think. Does every single room have to have the same thing? Can we have a variety of products or local products in the bigger hotels that are locally made? But to continue to support our friends and our community members and our small entrepreneurs, that's our kuleana. The deer, I was gonna say that too, because we live in Hana, and the deer are crazy out in Kaupo, and a lot of people utilize that deer for food on the table. But there are so many ways that the local hunters talk about. We could make dog food with the, like how you said, with the kibble, and there's all kinds of different products, that could be made. So there's that gap, and that could be filled. And there's some people that are actually doing it. There's some small businesses that are actually doing that. So I think we are, like you said, we're making headway. We're very innovative. We're on a smaller scale, as we should be. We're island people. We have finite resources, and so that's the way we think. And so to scale up huge feels foreign. So understanding who's around you, who your community is, how you can support each other, because it's kako, is the gap filler.
Wonderful. Well, hallelujah, everyone. Can we get another really big round of applause for this incredible panel? You know, I want to take a moment to just mahalo. There's so many folks who helped to create this space. The OEV TV team, if we can do a quick round of applause, they're all working hard. So for those joining us online and for those joining us after this event has happened, you can thank OEV TV, one of our native filmmakers, for making sure that this resource is available to everyone. I also really want to mahalo for the Hawaii Tourism Authority for the incredible space that's been created here, and just for being forward thinkers about how to continue to push this conversation forward, and really believing that the Ike is in the room. Our local people and our local organizations are the ones that have the vision for what's going to happen in our future. So mahalo to Kalani Ka'ana'ana and the Hawaii Tourism Authority for having us. Want to mahalo as well the Mac and Beth and her entire team. For those of you who are Maui folks, you probably know how wonderful this team is, but we have really been blessed with the opportunity to work with this wonderful organization. And also just to all of you who have allowed us to share space with you today and to be here on Maui. It's always an incredible pleasure and an honor. Okay. Thank you. Another round of applause to our panel. Mahalo nui, everyone.